for you guys. If I can get my mic up a little bit. My first question for all of you is, what type of animal is a stingray? Is it a bird? A plane? That's a really good guess. I hear fish. Any other guesses? Anybody? Anybody? All right. To get us all on the same page, what kind of animal is this? Are you sure?
Yes.
Last time I checked, this was a stuffed animal. But you are correct, and my friend over here was correct right off the bat. Stingrays are a type of fish, even though they don't really look like our regular fish here, right? Fish come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. For example, if you've ever seen a seahorse, well, that's just a saxophone-shaped fish. And if you've ever seen an eel, that's a long, skinny, stretched-out fish. Fish do not all have to look like that. So, since we know now our stingrays are a type of fish, let's compare them. Let's talk about some similarities and differences between rays and regular fish. The first one is that shape, right? When we think of a regular fish, we think of something that looks kind of like a football or maybe a rocket ship. In the science world, we call that fusiform. But stingrays, they're very flat. I like to think of them more like a sea pancake or a sea ravioli, depending on your appetite. Another big difference, I like pancakes too. Since it's morning, I think they're a sea pancake. Another big difference is their fins, right? On our regular fish, what do they use this big tail fin for? Swimming, right? On a regular fish, their tail fin is their motor. Now, do we think our stingrays use their tail for swimming? No, that's exactly right. Their tail is used for stability. Maybe if they could figure out how to whip it around like a boat propeller, it would be good for propulsion. But right now, they just use it kind of like a kite's tail to keep them stable. In fact, they use these big modified pectoral fins, just like that, to flap themselves through the water. But regular fish still have pectoral fins. They're here on the side, but you can see they're much smaller. So they use theirs for steering and stopping. Something else I want to look at is the mouth, because this is really important. On our regular fish, the mouth is right here at the front. We can see it smiling right back at us. But on the stingrays, if I look at the front, I do not see a mouth. Anyone know where the mouth of the stingray is? You guys are awesome. If you were listening to Miss Olivia, the mouth of the stingray is all the way on the bottom. That is really important when we feed them. But there is something else under here that is not the mouth, some other lines. Anyone know what those are?
Gills. They're gills.
Gills, yeah. They are their gills. Since stingrays are a type of fish, they breathe using their gills. But that brings me to a bit of a stingray problem. You see, their gills are on the bottom, and I see some of our stingrays in here with their bellies, their gills pressed right up against the sand. Seems like they should be breathing it in. That's really uncomfortable. You're pretty close. Our friend over there is almost right. We have spiracles on stingrays, so that's those holes behind their eyes opening and closing. Those allow them to pull water in from the top, and then they push it out over the gills on the bottom. So as long as their spiracles are sticking out, they can be buried in sand. They are not breathing it in. That's really helpful when they are hiding from predators. You know what the biggest predator of a stingray is?
A shark.
A shark, you guys are right. And that makes for some pretty awkward family reunions because sharks are also their cousins. Now, the last thing I want to compare is something we cannot see from the outside. It's on the inside. Now, our regular fish here has a skeleton made of the same material as our skeleton, which is bones, right? The last thing you want to crunch down on if you're eating a nice plate of fish. Good job. Stingrays are pretty floppy, though. Do they even have a skeleton?
No.
Ooh, mixed reviews. They do have a skeleton, but they don't have any bones. A stingray skeleton is made out of something a little bit softer. It is called cartilage, so if everyone can wiggle the tip of your nose or the top of your ears, congratulations, you have just found cartilage in your own body. And you can feel that material is much softer. So that is what a stingray skeleton is made out of. But that does bring me to another stingray problem, because they like to eat crunchy stuff off the bottom, things like crabs and snails. And I don't know about you, but I certainly cannot crush a crab with my ear or crunch a snail with my nose. It's a little too soft. To be able to do this, they have another pretty cool trick. They can take calcium from the water and the food they eat to harden or calcify specific parts of their body. So if you guys have ever been told to drink milk for strong bones, it's kind of like that, but they're not using milk, they're using their food and the water, and they can calcify their jaw and their teeth. So here is a cow-nose ray jaw. I'm a little far away, so if you want a closer look after the program, we do have another one here in the case behind the sink. But what I want you guys to see is that they do have teeth, but those teeth are very flat and plate-like. They're not sharp at all. I can rub this on my hand, does not scratch me or hurt me in any way, but those hard plate-like teeth are great for crunching down on critters like crabs and snails. Today though, you are not going to feel any stingray teeth. We're going to feed them a piece of soft whitefish. So for you guys, it's going to feel kind of like a wet stingray kiss. You can think of a gummy bear mixed with a vacuum cleaner. Now we have talked quite a bit about stingray biology. I want to switch gears a little bit, talk about stingray habitat, or where they like to live. Do you guys know where we might find stingrays here in Florida? In the water, in the ocean, exactly, in salt water. This is a saltwater tank. We can also find them out in the Indian River Lagoon estuary. So an estuary is a place where salt and fresh water mix to create a new type of water called brackish. So since we can find them out in the ocean, we can find them at Stuart Beach. We can also find them behind us in the Indian River Lagoon, meaning that right now, we're surrounded by stingray habitat. That's pretty cool. But what about freshwater? Do you guys think we can find stingrays in freshwater?
No!
Ooh, okay, mixed review. I hear a lot of no's. I'm going to do another quick poll. Raise your hand if you think yes. Anyone think yes? A couple, okay. What about no? No freshwater stingrays. And if it's too early for this and you're waiting for the answer, it's okay. We're all here to learn today. You can find stingrays in freshwater, but typically you have to go pretty far to do so, like Southeast Asia or South America. In fact, one of the largest freshwater fish in the world is a freshwater stingray. That species lives in Southeast Asia. It is very cleverly named the giant freshwater stingray. I know, very, very creative. But that ray can get to be half the size of my tank here. So it is a very big species. Now here in Florida, we don't have any freshwater rays quite like that. In fact, the only freshwater ray we really have is a small population of Atlantic stingrays that have been documented in the St. Johns River. They are normally a brackish or saltwater species, but a few of them have been found in the St. Johns, which is a freshwater body. So we can say we have a few freshwater stingrays. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is the one point we haven't covered yet, which is the stingray's barb or stinger. You guys probably already heard this, but the rays in this tank do not have their barbs. We trim them just like you would trim your nails or trim a dog's nails. Even if they had them, they would be pretty small and hard to see. But I do want to talk about them because there's a lot of misconceptions about stingray barbs. The first thing I want you guys to know is that the barb is not out here at the tip of the tail. Most often, it's going to be somewhere here in the middle of the tail, like on the Atlantic stingrays, or it's going to be right here at the base of the body, like the case for our cow-nose stingrays. The other thing I want you guys to know is that the tail and the barb are kind of separate pieces. You can think of the barb kind of like a fingernail. Your fingernail sits on top of your finger, but it is not your finger. That's how we can trim their barb, but they still have their long tail. And the last thing I want you guys to know is that their barb is very hard. It's another place where they use that calcified cartilage. But the most important thing I want you guys to know about their barb is the one thing I want to make sure you take away from today, and it's this. Stingrays will use their barb for one thing and one thing only, which is protection. They do not use it to hunt their food. They do not use it to defend their territory from other stingrays. They definitely don't sting people just for fun. They only use it if they feel like their life is in danger. Now I know we've heard stories about people getting stung by stingrays. Typically, that happens if someone steps directly onto one. I don't know about you, but if I was just out enjoying my day on the sand and something 10 times my size stomped on me, I would do whatever I could to protect myself as well. Fortunately, because we know this is how most people get stung, there's also a really easy way to avoid it. It is Florida's favorite dance move, and it is called the Stingray Shuffle. I'm going to show you guys how to do it today. So next time you're out on the beach, out at the club, whatever, you can break it out. It's a very easy dance move. All you have to do, instead of running through the water and doing the Stingray stomp, you just want to plant those feet and shuffle them across the bottom. You can shuffle forward or backwards, add a little side to side, whatever you want to do. The key is dragging your feet and not picking them up. By dragging them, you guys can hear those vibrations that you're sending out. To stingrays, big vibrations say, hey, there's a big predator coming your way. They would much rather use their flight than their fight when given the option. So use the Stingray shuffle. It's kind of like a Stingray doorbell, and you guys should be a-okay. Now the last thing I want to talk about before we switch gears to become animal trainers are the two different species we have here in our touch tank. The first species are the Atlantic rays. Now they are not quite as social as the other stingrays we have in here. They're bottom dwellers. We call that benthic. Atlantic stingrays typically are only 1 to 2 feet in size. So our ladies in here are full grown, but they're pretty easy to spot because their face is very pointy. We like to say it looks like a capital A. You can remember A for Atlantic. The other rays in this tank, you probably already met during touch time. These are the cow-nose stingrays. They have that square-shaped face with a little indentation, and they are very social. They're 3 to 4 feet full grown, and they are what we call a pelagic species. That means they spend their whole life swimming through the water column rather than down there on the bottom. And like I said, they are very social, not just here in our tank, but also out in the wild. They have found cow-nose rays in migratory groups as large as 10,000 stingrays together. A lot of stingrays. And scientists do have a pretty fun name for a group of stingrays. Even though they're fish, they're not called the same thing as a group of fish. We know a group of fish is called a school. A group of stingrays is actually called a fever. Scientists give some pretty cool names to groups of animals, like we have a fever of stingrays, a shiver of sharks. I like to say we have stingray fever around here instead of stingray fever. With that, you guys are pretty much stingray experts at this point. Are you guys all doing okay? I know there's a lot of information. Everyone good? Cool. We're going to switch gears. I'm going to teach you guys how to be animal trainers so you can help us feed the rays this morning. Now this part is super important because we all have to do it exactly the same way for the health and safety of our rays. These are living animals. Our actions impact their health. So I'm going to teach you guys how to do it so everyone can help me do it the right way. The first thing you're going to do is take this nice juicy piece of fish and put it in between any 2 fingers so that most of that fish is sticking up like a palm tree on an island. Then you are going to take this flat hand, push it all the way through the water so that it is flat to the bottom of the blue ledge. This time the water is going to come up past your elbow, so a little bit different than during touch time. And the most important thing here is that your hand is completely flat. When I say flat, I mean fingertips all the way through the heel of your hand, suction cup to that ledge. Imagine like you wanted to do a 1-armed push-up. Now, last time I checked, we cannot do a 1-armed push-up with our hands floating or with our hands vertically stuck to the wall or really even on your fingertips. So again, we don't want our hands lifted, floaty, or stuck to the side. They've got to be completely flat. I do see we have a few younger trainers in the audience. Some of our younger trainers might not be able to reach on their own because the water does come up past an adult elbow. If you have a younger trainer with you who can't reach, we will have to partner up with an adult and do some teamwork. What teamwork looks like is the adult holding that piece of fish and our younger trainer pushing on that adult arm or on that adult's hand to make sure it goes all the way flat to the bottom. Now, my younger trainers, this is a very important job because we have noticed in our years of doing this that our adults have floaty hands. So they really need your help to make sure that hand goes all the way flat to the bottom. Again, this is for the health and safety of our rays, so if our younger friends can't reach, we will be requiring this teamwork. The very last thing I'm going to leave you guys with are our 4 T's of feeding. The first T is tossing. Again, you guys are animal trainers. These rays are trained to come and feed from your flat hands. If you were to toss the food into the tank, it will confuse them. So please do not confuse our stingrays. Keep that fish in your fingers. If it slips out in the water, just grab it and try again. But please no tossing. The second T is tearing. You will see we cut these pieces of fish to perfect stingray size. If we were to tear them any smaller, it's going to make it very difficult for them to slurp out of our hands. So please, no tearing. If you do have a tray, you are guaranteed a piece of fish. The third T is probably the hardest. It is no touching. Our stingrays are very cute, but we do keep feeding time and touching time completely separate. The reason being, no one really wants to get poked in the face or the back while they're trying to have lunch. If you do want to touch the stingrays, just come back and see us at 12 o'clock when we reopen. But during feeding time, please no touching. And the fourth and final T is that very important teamwork. We aren't kidding, guys. Teamwork makes the dream work around here. Now in just a moment, I will call you up by the shape that is on the bottom of your tray. When you hear your shape called, I'll have you stand up, head left out the exit, and wrap back around to the front here, where Olivia will give you your piece of fish. Once you have your fish, you can start to feed. Now, for anyone with younger friends or doing teamwork, this ledge across from me is the best spot because the ground slopes up. Adults will be great on this straight ledge. And for anyone with knee mobility issues who does not want to kneel, this corner up here in the front is the easiest place to hinge at the hips. Once you guys are all done feeding, take your hand out of the water, grab your tray, and drop it off here at the exit where we have our return bin. This is very important because we do wash and reuse them. I also don't want you guys to accidentally carry around a stinky fish souvenir for the rest of the day. So please drop those trays off on your way out. With that, are we all ready to feed some stingrays?
Yeah!
All right, last thing, can you guys remind me where your hands go?
On the bottom.
Little weed. Where do our hands go? Thank you guys. With that, I will have my star.